Renowned resource person of the day, Dr. Devi Prasad Dogra, all other resource persons who will be presenting their research studies today, Madam Sangeeta Das and Bhavya from UAM Reality, all participants, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure in presenting to you Dr. Devi Prasad Dogra. Sir is an assistant professor in the School of Electrical Sciences, IIT Bhubaneswar, India. He has received his MTech degree from IIT Kanpur in 2003. After completing his BTech in 2001 from HIT Haldia, India, after finishing his master's, he joined Haldia Institute of Technology as a faculty member in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. From 2003 to 6, he served in the same institute. He has worked with ETRI South Korea during 2006 to 2007 as a researcher. Dr. Dogra has published more than 100 international journal and conference papers in the areas of visual surveillance, augmented reality, intelligent transport systems, computer vision, and healthcare analysis. He is also a member of IEEE. With this brief introduction, may I present to you Dr. Devi Prasad Dogra, today's resource person.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. So, am I audible clearly?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
Yeah. So, let me share my screen. So, is my screen visible to you?
Yes, sir. To me, it's visible.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, good morning to all of you. And I thank your institute for inviting me to deliver a talk on a topic of related to augmented and virtual reality. Okay, in this faculty development program, I welcome all the faculty members who have joined, all other participants who joined here, to discuss and to interact. So today's topic of discussion, my topic of discussion, I'll discuss about applications of augmented reality for modern education and entertainment systems. Okay, so you see, this is the overview of my presentation, where initially I shall discuss about what is augmented reality, and gradually I'll move to how augmented reality can be used for primary education, then how augmented reality for engineering students, like in higher grade students. Then we will also focus something on augmented reality for people, a particular sector of the people, maybe a needy people. I will also put some lights on how augmented reality can be used for culture, entertainment, and human computer interface. Okay, now if you try to define augmented reality, okay, you may find different definitions, but to me, this is probably one of the suitable definitions of augmented reality. Okay, so it is according to the Azuma, the definition characteristics are: it combines real and virtual contents together, so both can be seen at the same time, and it should be interactive in real time. The virtual contents can be interacted with. So obviously with the real content you cannot interact. You can only interact with the virtual content. Okay. And the third point is registered in 3D. So virtual objects complement the real objects as if they are fixed in space. You'll have basically registered3D objects. Okay. Now, often people actually get a little bit confused that how do you distinguish that which one is basically augmented reality and what is we talk about virtual reality. Okay, if you look into these two diagrams, what I am showing here, in the left side, basically I'm talking about the virtual reality. If you look into it, virtual reality is actually it replaces the reality. Okay. It is essentially a kind of environment where you do not see the presence of real objects, okay, or real life scenarios. So it replaces the reality. Okay. Whereas in case of augmented reality, it does not replace the reality, rather it enhances the reality. Okay, so you bring certain, some additional content on the real fields, okay, so that it enhances the, features of the reality, so that it helps the people who are, using these augmented reality based, systems. They will be able to interact in a better way. Okay. So what are the, if you look into the different types of requirements with respect to virtual reality and augmented reality, you can see that how they vary. With respect to scene generation, for augmented virtual reality, you require realistic images, because if you do not generate, realistic images, then the content which will be displayed using a typical virtual reality system looks to be not attractive. Okay, that's why it requires realistic images. On the other side, you can look into it, the scene generation. When we talk about scene generation, here basically the rendering, minimal rendering of the virtual objects is needed, because your real content is already available either through camera feed or any other real sensor field. Okay. Now, if you talk about display device with respect to how they are different. So in case of virtual reality, you need wide field of view, fully immersive experience, because you do not allow the person who is using the virtual reality, setup, his or her visual perception go beyond that virtual field of view. So that's why you need a wide field of view, fully immersive experience. There is nothing real into the virtual reality. All the contents which are being displayed to you, it must be virtual content. So that's why it's an immersive experience. Okay. Whereas in case of, augmented reality, it's not actually not immersive. You can actually deal with small field of view. Okay, so you do not, you do not need to cover the complete eyesight of the person who is using the augmented reality. Okay. If you look into the tracking, because tracking is very important, because you would like to place either the virtual objects into, you would like to place the virtual objects within the virtual environment or in the augmented reality environment. But in case of virtual reality, because everything is in virtual, in immersive experience, you find an immersive experience. So, the virtual object tracking doesn't, require to be highly accurate. Even if the tracking is not good, you still get the similar kind of experience. Whereas in case of augmented reality, you require a high quality of tracking accuracy. Why? Because you would like to, enhance the quality of experience of viewing one particular real object through some virtual object. Now, while you are placing the virtual object, vis-a-vis to the real object, you need to place them accordingly. So that's why the tracking is very important. If the placement of the virtual object in accordance to the real object, if there are certain errors, then the user's feedback will be bad or experience will be bad. That's why tracking, highly accurate tracking is needed in case of augmented reality. Now, then if you look into the entire reality virtuality continuum, there has to be certain trade-off, that when we can say that this is completely real and when we can say that this is completely virtual. Okay, so Milgrams has actually proposed a reality virtuality continuum, where if you look into the left side, it goes to the real environment. Okay, so as you move toward the left side, it actually goes to the real environment. And as you move towards the right side, you actually move to the virtual environment. And in between, basically, there is a mixed reality, plane. So in the mixed reality plane, as you move toward the real environment, your augmented reality comes here. So more you come to the left side, your reality becomes more and virtual objects becoming less. As you go toward the right side, your content of the virtual material, virtual contents are more and real becomes less. And toward the end, you get the virtual reality. So that's why this is basically this diagram can be used to understand that how actually augmented reality, virtual reality, how they are placed in the reality virtuality continuum. Okay. Now, coming back to the original topic of discussions in today's topic, that why we think that augmented reality in education can be helpful. Okay, we need to understand certain points. First of all, if you do learning, so learning means what we do. We need to understand and we need to remember. Okay, and research has shown that if you learn through visual information, it will be remembered for a longer time. Even the visual cortex of the human brain occupies a large portion out of all 5 sensors. Okay, if you look into it, the vision sensor is the most important sensor, and its processing is highly computation intensive. That's why in our brain, a large portion of the brain is occupied by visual cortex as compared to other sensors like auditory sensors, feelings, taste, and all the senses. Okay. Now, context-based virtual content generation that coexist with the real world, that is what it can actually help the kids to learn. Okay. So instead of using imagination, we can help them so that they can directly see it. Okay. And why we are actually investing more time or more money on AR, particularly for education, particularly for nursery and kindergarten education, because during this age group or the kids into this age group, they actually learn very fast. And if you want their learning to be accurate, okay, so its visual learning is more easier. So that's why even in our traditional, if you basically analyze that how we actually teach our kids when they are in the nursery stage or kindergarten stage, we use more diagrammatic representations of the concepts rather than simply speaking or simply asking them to read, because this visual learning it will be remembered for a longer time, and the research has already established that. Okay, now the question is, when you develop an augmented reality based system, because tracking is very important, and if the tracking is not good, then the system's experience of the AR system will be bad. So to improve the tracking, people have actually tried different tricks. So one of them is the basically marker based trick. So what we can do, we can basically design certain markers which are nothing but some special symbols or maybe special images or maybe special characteristics, things which will be embedded on the real scene. And whenever your sensor will be focusing toward that, whether it is a camera sensor or something else, it will be able to understand that this is a special symbol, and corresponding virtual object can be brought for rendering. Okay. So if you would like to go for marker based, okay, then we'll have to understand that what is the requirement. Okay. So in typical design of marker based on marker less interfaces, we'll have to understand that which one will be low cost and easy to use setup. If you basically, apply marker in each and every context, then it may not be possible. Okay, so you'll have to understand that for up to what extent you can actually apply marker based system and where you can go for no marker things. Okay, and if you focus particularly on the kids within the age group of nursery and kindergarten, you'll have to carefully design that what will be the size of the markers, where to stitch these markers, so that the applications work nicely. Okay, so also what we need to do, we need to develop a good user interfaces. Otherwise, this particular age group students, kids, they will not be interested to interact with the system. Okay, however, there are certain challenges. The challenges are something like that: augmentation of virtual information over the live data in real time is a challenge, because you may not be having a high-end computing device available while you deliver the system to the kids. Okay, everyone might not be having these high-end systems. Okay, the other point is, the more natural an interface is, obviously the more attractive the system will be. So we'll have to be careful while we design the interface. Okay, and the probably, which is the most difficult part, but which is a desirable one, is the anywhere augmentation. So it should not be a table dependent or a room dependent or a setup dependent thing. I mean to say that you cannot enforce that the system will work only when you sit on the table and with a particular lighting conditions, with the camera setup is like that. That are basically, those are restrictions you are putting, and these restrictions, essentially what these restrictions do, they simply discourage people to use such systems. So that's why it should be another important goal for an AR designer to ensure that anywhere augmentation is possible. But I know that it is easier saying than done. Easier said than done. We cannot simply implement anywhere augmentation because there are certain limitations. Okay, limitation in terms of the equipment available, limitation in terms of the environmental condition. There are many other factors. Okay, now if you look into traditional education system, because our next focus will be how we can use AR based system to help kindergarten education. Let's see that how basically it has evolved over time. Okay, in the traditional versus technology case. Okay, in traditional, what we do, we do repeated practice to remember. In picture based, we use graphic books to remember. In technology based, using visual aid, pictures, videos, animations. Here actually, in addition to that, pictures, videos, animations, we are willing to put AR based systems. Okay, so there will be another one slash here that will bring augmented reality based systems here. Now let us understand that why designing a marker is very important and how the markers can be designed. Okay, I will take some example. Let's assume that you would like to design a system for learning alphabets or teaching the kids how to remember alphabets, English alphabets, okay, with the help of a marker based augmented reality systems. So what we have actually in our laboratory, we have designed certain markers, like these are very simple printed markers. Okay, so we printed these things into white paper and then we cut them accordingly into the square shapes and kept them as markers. Okay, so what are the tasks needed? You need to do a pre-processing, because this is a simple marker. You may say that this is a very simple marker. Yes, We are currently showing a very simple marker. Marker can be complex one also. So even if it's a simple marker, there are certain steps what you'll have to do. One is you'll have to do the pre-processing. So pre-processing involves just removing all the noises while capturing the image. Then you need to detect the marker. You need to detect the area of the marker, which area contains the marker, and after that you need to identify the marker, because there may be multiple markers. For example, in case of English alphabet, we have 26 letters, so there will be 26 different markers. Okay, so we need to do an identification of the markers, and after you identified, you need to estimate the pose of the marker, because these markers will be detected in the video captured through the camera where the augmented reality application is running. Now, depending on the position of the marker, okay, you need to render the virtual object. So if you would like to understand the position of the marker to render the virtual object at right place so that the registration becomes easy, so you need to do pose estimation. Okay, and the second part is, obviously, once you estimate the pose of the marker, you just do the rendering of the virtual object, which is rather an easier task. The second one is rather easier as compared to the first one. Okay, but if you look into it, the marker tracking here, because we already discussed that why the tracking has to be more accurate in case of AR systems rather than VR system. This is the reason. Because if you do not detect the marker properly, your identification will be wrong. If your identification is wrong, then there is no meaning of the pose estimation. If pose is not correctly estimated, then you cannot render the virtual object at right place. Okay, so essentially these errors, they actually, they'll bring a cascading effect. So that's why these steps are very important. Now, what we have done, because these markers can be placed at various angles, the varying distance. So how do you ensure that during the real life application, a particular marker is recognized correctly? First of all, the marker is identified and then it is classified correctly. So that's why what we did, we actually captured the marker maybe in 4 orientations. You can actually capture in many orientations as much as possible, and then we tried to basically apply certain sort of noises, like we do illumination change, we do motion blur, we do horizontal motion blur, we do vertical motion blur, so that we try to generate as much as variations possible. Okay, it's a kind of augmentation. Okay, so that in real life scenarios, when these markers will be shown to the system will be able to classify it properly. Now, all these, samples which are generated are now given to your training, a system that is used for training. Okay. Now, because we have tried to incorporate all, various kinds of what I will say, the changes in the orientations, it is possible that the system will be able to learn it properly. Okay. Now, what are the challenges involved in marker tracking? Those who are, those who have knowledge about object tracking in videos, they understand that. Probably they will understand in a better way that why tracking is challenging in when the environmental condition changes. Okay, environmental condition changes can involve blurring due to motion, non-uniform illumination, distortion of the markers. So the markers, some portions of the marker might get damaged, so there will be distortions. There may be illumination changes because the lighting will be, lighting may not be homogeneous over the whole region of the marker. Also, there will be motion blurring. Okay, so these are the challenges. So while you adopt a tracking algorithm, okay, the algorithm needs to tackle these scenarios. Okay. So what we have done, I'll show you an example where we have a classification problem in hand, because we want to train 26, say uppercase letters with 4 orientations. Okay. So we have basically 104 classes. 4 orientation means 0 degree, 90 degree, 180 degree, and 270 degree. Even you can actually train it with 26 classes, with assuming all orientations are, all orientations for a particular letter or character belong to the same class. But to make the life easier, we made it basically 4 classes. Okay. Now, I mean to say that for every character 4 classes, so you have 104 classes. Okay. And one class is obviously for noun class. So total we have 105, 105 classes, and we adopted deep convolution neural network to basically train the system. Okay. Obviously, CNN can solve the problem subject to the condition you have a large data set for, that is required for the markers to be trained. Okay. So synthetic data can be created to imitate the challenging situations, like we have, we have applied certain types of augmentation to generate, noisy samples. But it is better if you can collect more samples in real life, scenarios. Okay. So what we have observed that typically 300, 400 samples, were sufficient to train the system. But this cannot be taken, as a holy grail. It should be taken with a pinch of salt. That it is not necessarily that it will always work with the 36,400 samples that I mentioned. I'm just showing you one experimental setup where we have tested it. Okay. And for the 105th class or the null class, you can use any other data set. I mean to say that the remaining portion, the remaining images available in this world, they can be placed into a single category and they are kept as a null class. Okay, so that's why it creates a 105 class. Now let us see a possible architecture which can actually try to solve this. Okay. So this is one AR framework which can be used for learning alphabets. You have a camera attached which gives you the live stream. You do the pre-processing, you apply marker detection, okay, and then you apply background removal. You identify the marker because there is a trained CNN model. Okay, and you identify the marker, and then you estimate the pose. Okay, and you render the virtual object. So marker tracking happens because in the next frame you get the next frame, so you basically track the marker continuously. That's why this marker tracking happens. Now on the right side, if you look into it, we have synthetic marker creation data set created that we have already created earlier, and we have adopted a training and we trained the classifier. So after training the classifier, we get the CNN model that is being used for the testing, which is on the left side. Okay. Now, what we have used a very simplistic architecture for the training with the input and then convolution, ReLU, and max pooling with a very simple, with 3 such, layers. Okay. And then we have used a flattening layer followed by a fully connected layer and then a softmax layer for getting the output. This was a very simplistic architecture, but you can actually come up with a more composed architecture depending on the what kind of problem is there or what is the problem in your hand. We are solving the alphabet problem. You can solve any other problem, and depending on the requirement, you can actually change the architecture. So this was our architecture, which we have used it for identifying the marker. Okay. And for our experiments, it it worked perfectly fine, and I'll show you that how basically it is working. Okay. Now, for the classification, we have used an SVM based classification. Okay. So we have also used another classification. We have used these features. Okay. How do we do basically the classification? Whether it is a marker X, marker Y, that can also be done using SVM based classification. This is an alternative way. Okay. So how do you basically define each and every marker? There are features like we have used F1 to F7. You can handcraft this. These are basically handcrafted features like number of contours enclosed, number of points in each contour, perimeter of each contour, area of each contour. These are handcrafted features, and they will certainly change depending on the application that you are dealing with. Okay. And you also you can apply a simple SVM, for classification. Okay. Multi-class classification is possible with a typical SVM. And when we tested it with SVM, the accuracy that we have achieved, it was approximately 92.5%, whereas in CNN gives, even with lesser number of epochs, it gave us 96.7% accuracy. Again, these figures can be only believed with respect to the current data set and with respect to the experimental setup I'm talking about. So if you try to design your own thing, you can start, keep on experimenting even by varying the classifier. We have used SVM. You can go for some other classifier like random forest. You can use it. You can use naive-based classifiers depending on what suits your applications, or you can even experiment with many classification techniques. Okay. So the overall procedure looks like this. You have a marker like this. You show the marker in front of the camera, and then the detection of the marker module, it detects the marker. Okay. And then you identify the marker with the orientation. You estimate the pose. The identification is done basically with the help of the neural network model on the right side, this side, and then you estimate the pose. Once you estimate, now the point is, how do you estimate the pose? Okay, basically, if you look into the position of the camera, okay, with respect to the position of the camera, you need to estimate the pose of the marker, because your rendering will be done into the camera's image sensor, okay, camera coordinate system. So you need to translate the real world coordinate system, okay, of the object into the camera coordinate system. Okay, so that's why the pose estimation is used, and these are standard equations and standard formulas which can be used for do the pose estimation. So pose of the marker with respect to the camera. For a calibrated camera, pose can be uniquely calculated from 4 coplanar non-collinear points. So if you have 4 coplanar non-collinear points available on the marker, it is possible to estimate the pose. And because we are using markers, rectangular markers, so we got enough number of points, and we basically applied this formula to to estimate the camera coordinate with respect to the extrinsic camera matrix and wall coordinate system, and we were able to estimate the pose. Okay, so basically you get the XC and YC and ZC with this transformation. Now these are the final pose estimation parameters. So I'm not going into the details because these are well-known standard things. So once you estimate the pose of the object with respect to the camera coordinate system, you can actually render it. Now look into the rendering operations that we are performing here. So when the person on the left side, if you look into it, the person is showing a particular marker here, and then the marker is getting detected first. Okay, and after the detection, it estimates the pose. Why the pose estimation is important? Because the displaying the virtual object here, the virtual object is basically teapot. So this teapot virtual object is rendered over the marker at right place at right scale. That is very important. So if you look into it, when the T is oriented like this, the mouth of the teapot is on the right side. Similarly, when you reorient the T, you see that the mouth of the teapot is rotated. So that is called registration. So that's why it was possible, because we were able to detect the pose of the marker. And that pose of the marker actually helped us to render the virtual object accordingly. Okay, I'll show you some videos that basically in true case how it is going on. So these are some examples. We are showing it basically. So if a kid says that this is T, so T for teapot. Some other objects may also come depending on what is the library currently you are having with you. So if you have a strong library which supports many other objects, you can actually bring those objects and you can superimpose those objects on the real marker. Okay, now why where is the why do we call this augmented reality? If you look into the output here, this particular frame, the real scene is the whole image frame. The virtual content is only this portion of this, or the 3D marker that we have actually placed it. Okay. Now, if you look into the other images, we have also done the same thing. Okay. So in all cases, you can see the real image, which is the live feed of the camera, that is more, and that is more important. What we are trying to do, if you remember the definition of the augmented reality, it enhances the experience. How it enhances the experience? When the user sees the marker being displayed on the camera, and at the same time the user sees that there is a virtual object placed over the marker, so it enhances it basically what it does, it provides additional information about the marker. This is one kind of rendering. You can actually put some more information depending on whatever you want to put it there. I just put a virtual object. You can put a text there. You can put a video there itself also. So that's why this is enhancing the reality. In case of augmented reality, it is enhancing. That is what the difference we need to understand. Okay. So it enhances the reality. It talks more about the reality, that what is important about this reality. So when you talk about this T, so somebody will say that okay, T is for teapot. T may be for tiger also. That's correct. You can bring different objects depending on. So when you want to make it more advanced techniques, say for example, at the same time you embed audio with this one. So when the kid says that I would like to see a tiger for a T, then a tiger will come. Or I'd like to see a temple for a T, a temple will come. Okay. Similarly, so that's kind of enhancement. So you are basically enhancing the experience of the real scene through augmenting the virtual object over the real scene. Now, augmenting the virtual object over the real scene, you need to first identify the real scene. That's why tracking was important. Here the real scene is T. So we were able to track the object T correctly with the help of a classifier. And then we were able to estimate the camera pose, okay, based on the camera parameters available, so that we can understand that what is the current position of the real scene, so that while rendering the virtual object, I should not render this virtual object. I should not render this virtual object here. Okay. Rather, I should render the virtual object here only with a proper scale. I'll tell you that what do I mean by scale. Scale means if you look into the right side here. Okay. See, we have displayed 4 different objects here. Say B for ball, T for teapot, C for cone, and D for donuts. Now, why pose estimation is important, perspective is important? Because the person who is looking this image into the camera, what the impression the person has, obviously C is more closer to the person and D is more closer to the person than B and T. Okay. So since their positions are relative with respect to the, the first person's, view, then obviously the scale and orientation also need to be changed accordingly. That's why the size of the ball is smaller than the size of the cone, and the size of the ball is smaller than the size of the donut. Similarly, the size of the kettle is smaller than the size of the cone or the donuts. That's called pose estimation. So if you do not apply pose estimation correctly, this ball will appear in a larger size, kettle will appear in a larger size. That will not give you the feeling. Okay, so that is the reason the pose estimation is very extremely important. While you do pose estimation, you'll have to ensure that you correctly estimate the pose, because that will essentially lead to this sort of effects. Okay, so when we tested with many, alphabets, we found that our proposed system actually works, nice. Okay, you can actually develop your own system. Only thing is that you need to. So what we understood here, if you go back to the, architecture here, what you need to do? Rather, I will go into the original architecture. This one. What you need to do? So during training, you basically need to create a data set for the markers. See, we have used handcrafted markers here, A, B, C, D. You can use real life markers. For example, in a scene where there may be multiple objects present on the table, and you would like to develop an augmented reality system that will automatically, enhance the visual appearance of the scene. So what you will do, say, let's assume that there is a cup present on the board or on the table. Now, if your system is able to detect the cup, then the cup can be used as a marker. For simplicity, with the demonstration, for the demonstration purpose, I'm just showing you the markers with A, B, C, D written letters. But these markers can be real life markers. Real life markers means a bottle can be a marker, a whiteboard can be a marker, a pen can be a marker. So what you need to do, you need to train a classifier that is able to detect those real life objects. That will solve the problem. Okay. So once you train it, your CNN model is ready. Then this, the left side where the test in the online system, when it is working, your camera gets the current frame. You do initial pre-processing if needed, and you do a marker detection. This marker detection is basically it's a kind of heuristic. It's a marker area detection. Rather, it's not marker detection. So slightly, I'll change the terminology here. This is marker area detection. After marker area detection, you basically go for actually marker detection and marker identification. Okay. And then you apply pose estimation. And once you estimate the pose, you know that what will be the position of this virtual object, okay, with respect to the camera coordinate system. So you know that scale, you know its orientation, you know its size. Okay. So if you know everything, then you can actually render the virtual object at right place, at right scale, at right orientation. That is what basically it can be. So this is a generic framework which can be applied to any domain. Okay. Now, going back to the depictions, pictorial depictions, let us see that how basically in real life it works. So now what I will do. So is the video playing? Can someone respond whether the video is playing?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
So now you can see that while we are rotating, the virtual object is also rotating. So that's because our pose estimation was very correct. When we are even slanting the face, even the virtual object also gets like this. So this is called registration. Because our registration was quite accurate. Okay. So we were able to render the virtual object at right scale, at right orientation, and it was almost accurate. Okay. It was almost accurate. So So that is the kind of accuracy you can achieve if your pose estimation good and if your marker detections. Now, say for example, another object comes. So it also, registers the object and it can render the virtual object accordingly. Okay. So that is the kind of effect you can bring in your system if you are able to train the system with adequate amount of data, and if your training is successful. Even if we tried with multiple objects, you see that it is able to detect both the objects simultaneously, and even the scales of these objects are also changing. Someone is with a smaller scale, someone, so that means the relative position of the objects are also getting identified properly. Okay, so that is what these are, we have developed this for demonstration purpose. You can extend it to any domain of whatever is required. Okay. So you can see that the accuracy is pretty good. I mean to say, even if sometimes it is going, but overall accuracy is extremely good. Okay, that's because of the detection is very accurate, as well as the pose estimation is very accurate. Now the question is, here we have used simple markers like B, T written on boards. Now, is it possible always that we will be having this sort of marker? You see that how he is changing. He has basically made the marker as flat. Even in that case also, it was able to detect and it was able to register. So this is what interesting. Okay. So it means even the detection is also correct. You need to estimate the pose correctly so that the placement of the virtual object looks to be realistic in nature. That's why the effect will come in a better way. Okay. So if you develop this for the whole set of alphabets, okay, say for example, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, up to Z, okay, up to Z, into it, that's good, nice. You bring your own object. Now we have created these objects. Okay, now it is up to you that what sort of objects you require. There are libraries available where you can actually develop these objects, and you can simply call this object as library into your code so that they can be displayed. Now, why I am saying that this will help the kids to understand alphabets. Say for example, if you integrate the audio part along with this one, or if you integrate maybe the expression of the child with this one, that will also enhance. Okay, so it will be funny for the kids to learn these things through interactive augmented reality setups. That is what basically we want to demonstrate. Now going back to the markerless interaction. See, up to this point we were talking about the markers. These markers were A, B, C, D. You may say that you need to generate these markers, print them and paste them on boards, something like that. Yeah, I know that. That's why the marker based things are always, they have some bottlenecks. They will be accurate. They are accurate because the markers are distinct symbols which are not confused with the real life symbols or real life objects available in the scene. So that's why they are pretty accurate. Whereas when we talk about real life scenarios without markers, then we need to develop some more accurate systems that will work without even marker. So one step for going markerless interaction can be, you can attach some sensors with your device. So for example, if you look into it these days, Leap Motion is a well-known sensor that is basically used to capture the hand movement, basically palm movement in front of it. So you can look into this particular area. This is the Leap Motion device, okay, which has a couple of infrared sensors embedded inside, and it has a library also which returns you the position of different fingers, these finger positions. Okay, and based on these finger positions, actually you can control this. So that is what is possible with Leap Motion. Just a minute. Now you see, here there is no marker. You change your hand positions, and accordingly the 3D virtual object is changing. Now the question is, it is still not accurate. It is still not accurate. You need to do a lot of training. You need to do a lot of fine tuning. Okay, because I do not want to, detect the position using a marker now. I would like to detect or change the orientation of the virtual object based on the position of my fingertips. Okay. Now, how accurately these fingertips can be detected, that depends on the sensor and that depends on the library that we are using. So if you are able to detect the finger positions with highly accurate results, then possibly we can replace the markers and we can use simple hands. Okay. So somebody is learning alphabets, they will simply write A on the air and the virtual object A will come, or maybe an object related to a virtual object related to A will come. Okay, that is possible. Okay. Now, up to this point, what I was talking about, basically how the augmented reality systems can be used for primary education, basic education, for funny education, something like that. Let's go for a little bit of serious education kind of thing. All of us are actually part of some engineering departments, disciplines. Okay, now here across the disciplines we have different laboratories. Okay, and these laboratories actually contain several equipments which can be expensive and maybe complex in terms of its functionality. So is it possible to basically develop an AR system that will help the demonstrator or the students to understand about the complex equipment? That is what we are trying to. Let's assume that we have actually developed a system with one of my colleagues at IIT Bhubaneswar, Dr. Srikanth. He is from Material Science Engineering Department. Okay, and they have optical microscope, electro-optical microscope. Okay, which is an expensive equipment, and it has many features, components which we may not need to we may not know. Okay, and we wanted to develop something, an AR based application that will help a person who is first time seeing this equipment just to know how to operate this equipment. So we have developed an application with the same concept of marker based. Okay, but here instead of bringing virtual object, we actually brought a video demonstrating the particular function of the object. Okay, so that a person with a mobile phone, with that AR application installed, can easily understand how to operate this device. So this application is used for scanning an optical microscope and detecting different components of the microscope using markers. Okay, so we have created short videos of the components in what have also been integrated with the app. Okay, now let's see how the app looks like. Okay, so if you look into these markers are stitched. So when you focus with your camera, okay, what it does, it automatically brings a video and also the textual description. The product is currently still under development, so there are certain glitches. But when you basically focus toward this marker, it talks about what this knob is all about. Let's say a marker is attached with this one. If you focus, it's like QR code based marker. Here we have used QR code. So it talks about that this is a focusing knob and how to operate. So if you have a video which can show you that how to operate this. So this sort of experience can be brought into the AR system, so that a person who doesn't know anything about the equipment can actually know about it. Now the question is that here we have stitched the QR code based markers. So if our AI system or machine learning system is good, then the system will be able to identify these small components and knobs, and based on these components they will bring the virtual content in terms of image, in terms of video, in terms of text, whatever you require. Okay, So if you see that when you focus into this particular component, it brings a video or an image, how to operate it, okay, and how to fix it. So that is the kind of AR-based application, which you can develop it for any engineering equipment that is there in your laboratory. Okay, you just need to, attach different components of the system together and come up with a model that will work. Okay, so it requires, maybe if you would like to avoid these marker parts, it requires a good training on the component. Say for example, this particular knob, if you would like to basically train on this particular knob, you take thousands of images of this particular knob from different angles, okay, and you classify a classifier, okay, neural network based classifier. So whenever your camera will focus toward that, it will be identifying that this is a particular knob. Now since you have identified that this is a stage adjuster, you bring corresponding virtual content about this stage adjuster and display it there itself, because you have already estimated the pose. Okay, the pose estimation has been done, so you can easily do it. Okay, so that is another one application. So I'm just showing another application. So it can be actually applied to any domain of engineering, subject to the condition that you have these sort of equipments where it is possible. Okay, so I have just shown you an example of how this can be used for engineering applications. It can be extended to any other domain also. Now let me go to another domain, that how actually AR can be used for needy people. This work has been carried out by one of my PhD scholars, Ajay. Actually, what he developed a marker-based AR systems to help kids to learn the basics of science and physics. Okay, and this particular system has actually won the hackathon, worldwide hackathon in 2017. It was organized in Manchester, UK, and this team actually won the first prize there. Okay, the group name is Pluto AR. They developed an inexpensive, interactive, engaging, and portable platform for learning. Okay, so it has stories, simple math questions, elementary physics, and maze solving problem. So what they have done, they have basically developed a marker launchpad like this. You see there are different symbols placed. These symbols are nothing but they are acting as markers. And they have also created different types of card-based markers. So depending on the placement of these cards here on the launchpad, it will actually generate the visual virtual effect. Okay, so when we actually tested this one with a group of children who have some problem, they are basically children who are staying in the Chetana school. Chetana school is a school of specially abled child in Bhubaneswar. These kids are suffering from some sort of disorder in their cerebral disorder. Okay, so you can understand that their behavior will be completely different. Okay, when we actually took this application to them, what we found that initially, so for example, this kid was not paying attention at the beginning of the demo. But after some time, the kid was actually trying to grab those virtual object over the mobile phone. So what it suggests that possibly that with the help of such systems, you can maybe ignite the neuromotor response. I am not claiming that this will work every case, but this is just an example, use case we are saying. It is possible that with the development of such tools, we can even help these kids. Okay, so like this, at the end, the kid was trying to put his hand over the virtual object. That was interesting development that we got. Now let us see that how basically it works. So basically it's if you see this video, when you put this Pluto card, a virtual object, earth-like object comes like this. Okay, and when you put a rotate card, so it rotate clockwise, the earth rotates clockwise. Okay, so on the background you see that this is real field of view. Okay, real camera view, and these objects are virtual objects are coming. Okay, now if you put another card, say for example rotate anti-clockwise, it will start rotating in an anti-clockwise direction. So this way basically you teach the kids different concepts of gravity, different concepts of depending on what. Say for example, if you put the surface card, the surface will come. If you put a tree card, the trees will come. Now, if you basically water them, what will happen? Essentially, the trees will grow up. So this sort of logic we have actually put into the system. So whenever you are putting, then if you put it basically a rocket card, a rocket will come. And if you take off the rocket, so you put a takeoff card, the rocket will take off. Rocket takes off. Okay. So this way, actually, we have developed a system. Actually, this team has developed a system. It can be used for understanding the basics of basics of physics, maths, for example, addition, how to perform addition to to 4 objects are coming. So I mean to say that we are only showing a few examples. You can extend it to at any level you want. Okay. Only thing is that you need to basically anti-gravity experiment. Okay, so there are so many so many things which can be done. Okay, now the last part of the discussion, I mean to say that before I go to the end of the presentation, I would like to show 2 more applications of augmented reality. One is particularly in cultural learning. Okay, how it can be used for learning. Let's assume that we have different types of classical dance like Kuchipudi, Natyasastra. All there are different types of dance postures available for various states of a country. So if you would like to learn this art, whether you are performing it properly or not, how do you know it? Okay, so there are ways we have done here. Basically, we have started a project here to understand that whether a person is dancing properly or not as per the regulations of that particular dance thing. Okay, so what we do, we basically used a motion capturing jackets. Okay, we tried with different things. Motion capturing jackets means there are jackets available which are little bit costly jackets which a person uses, and it has several sensors. Those sensors are Wi-Fi sensors. They will send the locations of the body parts, and you can actually estimate the skeleton of the person, but that is basically less comfortable. Okay, and also the feedback is less reliable. Then you can also have Microsoft's Kinect, which is basically working using camera-based systems. Okay, so what we do, we have used a video-based system, which is essentially video segmentation, then posture classification, then posture sequence mapping, then display, then analysis of the learner's framework. This is currently going on. So when a person is dancing, we first identify different so for example, legs, torso, knee, and different other joints. Okay, and based on that, we try to basically fit a skeleton to this one. Now, if the skeleton is actually mapped with the ground truth posture of that particular dance class, okay, so we shall be able to understand that whether this dance classification is done properly or not. Similarly, say for example, somebody is performing a mudra. Okay, now there will be ground state representation of these mudras, and you, with the help of augmentation of these skeletons over the original scene, you get a feedback that whether basically the mudra that you are performing, whether it is correct or not. So that sort of effect can be brought into a classical dance environment. Okay, so we are still experimenting with various kinds of algorithms here. It's still undergoing one, but I just wanted to share my thoughts on this one, that how it can be applied to different domains. Okay, obviously there are certain problems. Okay, so because if the skeleton detection is not correct, so actual versus real ideal mapping as shown earlier can be used to see some more some errors visually. So if the skeleton is actually not correct, then it will be difficult. But let's assume that you extract the skeleton and you have the original ground truth skeleton for a particular mudra. So you just overlay both the skeletons on the real image. You can, the person who is performing the art can know that where the difference is there. So that sort of visual effect we are going to bring. And then the last part is basically how augmented reality can be used for human computer interface. So one of my PhD scholars actually working earlier, he was trying to develop, systems that are authentication systems where you sign on the air. You do not need to sign on paper or on a digital board, something like that. You simply sign on the air. Okay. So what we have tried to develop here is basically again with the help of a device like leap motion sensor, which can track the positions of the finger as per your orientations, and it will be able to, understand the finger movement, and then we extract the three-dimensional path of the finger movement, which is essentially representing your signature, and we actually compare it with respect to the stored signature, and we check it that whether basically it is matching with or not. So this has applications in human computer interface also. I have just shown you a security applications, but you can start thinking about that, how augmented reality can also be used for human computer interactions. For example, if you would like to actually interact with your computer without touching your keyboard and mouse, okay, so how it understands that whether it is you or it is somebody else? Because when we enter into the computer, we basically use passwords. Let's assume that we want to, we do not want to use any passwords, and we do not want to touch the keyboard on mouse due to several reasons. Okay, it has applications in medical science also. For example, a doctor, while operating a patient, may want to understand a particular segment of the organ, that how the organ looks like. Okay, so with the help of gestures, the doctor can actually bring the virtual content on the display board so that it helps the physician or the doctor surgeon during the operations. Similarly, we are trying to do it for human computer interactions. So with that, I shall stop my presentation today. I would like to now listen to you for your feedbacks and questions. Thank you all. Yeah, we can now start discussing. Hello. Hello, am I audible? Hello? What is the problem?
Hello?
Yes, yes.
Sir, your screen is not visible.
No, I have completed the presentation. Okay.
No, right, sir.
Yeah, now it is visible. Hello.
Yura.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're visible.
Yes.
Okay.
So we can discuss now. If you have any questions, we can discuss now.
Sir, two people's raise their questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay, let me see the chat box.
Prashad Krishnamurthy. And after that, Kavita Anand.
Okay. Let me see the chat box. Is it some, yeah. Prasad Krishnamurthy wrote that, is it possible to transform 2D video to 2D videos to AR/VR format? I didn't understand the question. What do you mean by transform 2D videos to AR/VR format? Are you talking about playing the video over the content? Because AR/VR has no format actually. So if you have a 2D video, there's nothing like AR/VR format. If you have a video with you, whether it is 2D or 3D, irrespective of that, if you have a video, you can play it on an AR platform. That is what possible. There's nothing like AR/VR format, because the AR/VR is a concept only. Okay, so essentially, when it comes AR, when you have virtual content is used to enhance the appearance or experience of the real view, then it is called augmented reality. So if you would like to put a video to enhance the experience, that is also AR. Okay, there is no restriction on it. Okay, so you are saying that no, we have historic 2D videos from, okay, Padma Subramanian, but where you would like to put it? Historic 2D videos, where you would like to put it? Would you like to put it when somebody watches a particular object related to that? That we need to understand. Say, for example, when I was showing the electronic microscope, when somebody is focusing the camera toward a marker, we are bringing a video. So that can be done. You are saying that somebody is asking, leap motion tracking suffer with delays. I agree with you. Could you suggest some alternative leap motion which is affordable to? I feel best is do camera-based tracking. Okay, because camera-based tracking does not suffer from motion delays. Okay, only thing is that your algorithm has to be correct. Because of the advancement of the deep learning these days, camera-based tracking is very accurate. Okay, so I will suggest you to focus more on detection and tracking with the help of simple web camera based thing. We are actually developing systems which are even accurate than leap motion. Kinect is there, but again, Kinect has certain limitations also. But Kinect is also there. You can use Kinect, Microsoft Kinect. Okay. Any other question I have missed? Let me see. Can we stamp AR marker on printed books? Somebody has written. Yeah, can we stamp AR markers on printed books? Yeah, possible. You can stamp AR marker, but you need to have an application that will be able to recognize the marker and render the virtual content. That is possible. I mean to say that, like, even I see that my daughter's school, they actually send the books with the AR markers. So whenever I open an application in the mobile phone, those are not AR based things. Basically they recognize the marker and then they bring the virtual content being played, or they give a website link. Okay, but if you would like to bring an AR effect, then you'll have to develop an application. Okay, and that application will basically play the video or the virtual content, whatever you want to do. That is possible. If it becomes possible to convert earlier dance videos into AR format, then students can learn from world-class dancers. Yes, that is exactly what we are trying to do. we are saying is right. But I'll tell you, creating these, 3D good videos, okay, is also very, difficult. I mean to say that it has to be accurately rendered, otherwise, because these are going to be ground truth, postures. So the best way is if we get the videos from the experienced learners or dancers, and from there we can create the 3D representations. That will be much better. Okay, so any further question? Open source software can be recommended. I mean to say that we use AR Toolkit, okay, and we also use Unity, Vuforia, and we also use OpenCV. Okay, it's a combination of things. Okay, some portions are, if you would like to get the full functionality, you need to buy some license. But all our developments are, because these are only prototype developments. So for these prototype developments, you can simply use their free versions. Okay, Unity 3D, Vuforia, okay, then AR Toolkit, okay, along with OpenCV. Okay, these days my students have actually migrated to Python environment. So because of the obvious reasons that deep learning architectures are, easily implementable there, so they are using that sort of thing. But virtual objects, you can actually, take it from Unity 3D. So Unity provides also certain free models, but I think there are some plugins which can support even generating more complex objects. There are some softwares which can be used to render or to generate complex virtual objects. See, one point you have raised is right, that which are very difficult to generate complex models. I also, feel that this is one. So what we are trying to do, we have a virtual and augmented reality center of excellence at IIT Bhubaneswar. Okay, what I would like to do, there is one. Let me share one thing with all of you, because this will be very much interesting to all the participants who are here. They can actually take part into our competition. That is a virtual and augmented reality center of excellence. There is a conference which is going on, and the last date is still there. You actually can apply for that. So basically, I have shared the link with our IIT Bhubaneswar Virtual and Augmented Reality Center of Excellence. Okay, where we have a competition going on for ideas. So I will request all the interested people. You can even, encourage your students to participate in the competition. This is a nice one, and they can actually participate in the competition. There will be many industrial demonstrations. This is WAVR 2021. It is known as WAVR 2021. So please look into this. Okay, and you will get a lot of information about the ongoing, event. And it includes hackathon, it includes special talk, it includes competition. I am part of this, virtual and augmented reality center of excellence. I'm a member of this center of excellence at IIT Bhubaneswar. Okay, you can look into it. You will get a lot of information. Somebody is asking about books and websites. Frankly speaking, I do not use any book on this one. I use only internet resources for this one. But there are some groups, research groups. I don't remember the exact name of the professor. Some research groups from New Zealand. Okay. Some research groups are from Europe. You will find them, they are working. I have not shared my screen. I have only pasted the websites into the chat box. Please look into these websites. Okay, or let me share it for the time. Let me share it. I was talking about this. This is our Virtual and Augmented Reality Center of Excellence, IIT Bhubaneswar Virtual and Augmented Reality Center of Excellence. We have one workshop and hackathon that is called WFVR 2021. If you would like to register for this one, you can register it. It contains several things. Okay, so basically it will be having workshop, hackathon, and a lot of things are there. You can look into how to register, what are the deadlines, there are some prizes. I think proposal submission is still 15th of March. Those who are interested, they can participate into this, and you can also encourage your students to participate into this. Okay. Hope this one will be helpful for you. Okay, so any further question?